Oh, wow. So this has been a difficult conversation for me to sit down and do. I've been grappling with it for a few weeks now. And when I announced to you guys that I wanted to do this, I had one idea for the format and I actually started to put that together, and I just completely scrapped it to do more of a sit down, candid conversation about this issue and this topic that is near and dear to me. For some reason, I just feel so much fire and so much just within me to talk about. Maybe it's because I've watched a lot of the content regarding Jazz Jennings and the situation that's going on with that.
The past 2 years have been pretty transformative for me. You know, I went through a lot. I experienced some high highs and low lows. And those low moments were the lowest of the low that I've ever been through in my entire life.
And where our society is moving when we talk about transgender issues. And I kind of see this very abusive, I don't want to know if that's the right word, but a very vituperative, mean-spirited conversation around this issue that I think is very uncharitable as a Christian. So I wanted to sit down and kind of give a Catholic perspective of this whole entire thing with Jazz Jennings and just transgenderism in general. Why this conversation, and is this really a religious question? Some of you have asked in the comments or stated, and I feel that, you know what, yes, it is. It is because you have people who are of faith and they're struggling with this. They're trying to figure out who they are. And as Christians, one of the things that we know and understand is that we are created in the likeness of God, that He has fearfully and wonderfully made us, that there are no mistakes in that. And those of us who are not struggling with gender identity, we have no concept to understand like how lucky we are and fortunate we are with that. And I think it's really important to be able to give space and to listen and to be able to move in a way where we stand firm in what we believe as Christians, but also keep our hearts and minds and spirits open to be able to help other people find their way back to God and who they are at the core. So I think that's number one. There is a YouTuber by the name of Exalanzic who did an interview on a channel called Trigonometry, which I really thought was a brilliant interview. And I want to kind of bring something in that she said. Now, Exalanzic is a woman who went through a phase of being transgendered. She lived as a trans man for many years.
Let's just look at your journey. What made you identify as trans for 4 years?
I feel like I had a general discomfort both with my body and with the social expectations that were put on me for being female. And then I also feel like from early childhood, that discomfort was largely rooted in an early childhood trauma. I had a significant injury. And I think I just felt very alienated. And I think I looked for an explanation. And the explanation I landed on was it would be different if I was a boy. And that was just kind of at the back of my mind and coming out in immature ways because I was a child. And then I grew up and got to college and was exposed to these ideas, was exposed to all these people saying, yeah, me too, we're the same. And it was just like, oh, okay, great. I can finally pursue this in some way. And it was also just kind of the thing to do. Everyone was doing it.
And she came out of it and she's D-trans. And I watch a lot of D-trans kind of channels. I love certain content creators who are actually trans. Blair White is one of my favorites. I watch Blair White stuff all the time. Blair is a big advocate in talking against children being transitioned and medical transition for kids. And I can't agree more than that, right? So Exalanzic is someone who's actually big in the space as well, who got their channel taken away actually, but she's been on other places talking about the whole Jazz Jennings interview. So here's what Exalanzic had to say about the soul and why this actually is connected to religion in many ways.
So I suppose the sort of question that many people would be asking, because the general perception, I think, among most people who are uninitiated in this issue is there are some people who feel that they are in the wrong body. They are not the sex in which they were physically born. And we as a society have come to a point where we now have the medical toolkit to support those people into making changes to their body that make them feel more comfortable with who they are, quote unquote. That would be, I think, the mainstream description
Yes.
of the trans position. What is incorrect about that view, in your opinion? Don't say everything.
I mean, the first thing is that to be born into a body, you need to believe in a material or some kind of immaterial essence that exists apart from the body that can be then placed into the body, and that's generally considered a soul. And so we're dealing with a religious concept here, to be born in the wrong body. And then the second part of that is like, well, medical science can now change it. My goal for documenting this is to show that these are extremely experimental, and we don't know what we're doing because we are trying to create function and create appearance in a person where that's not natural. Whereas medicine is supposed to be about restoring a person's natural functioning and preserving it, not trying to put wings on someone to see if it works, which is essentially what we're doing.
Now, the interesting thing about this is that Exelanzic doesn't really put a light on the religious issue on this. In fact, I would say that she kind of distances herself from that. But when she said that in that interview, I was like, boom, the light went off, because it's very similar to something that St. Thomas Aquinas said. It really goes for the argument that the body and the soul are one, that you cannot separate the two, that human beings are of a rational soul. And that's different than, let's say, the animal kingdom. And that's different than, let's say, the plants and vegetation and stuff like that they all have souls. But our soul is a rational soul, that it's different. And that the soul and the body are intertwined. They cannot be separated. And in that respect, that our gender and who we are, born male and female, is not a mistake, that you cannot, again, separate it. And at the core of what everyone is talking about is that issue. So you cannot take religion out of this and say that we shouldn't talk about this as Christians. It's not our business. It absolutely is. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. So again, this goes right down the plate to our beliefs. And the fact of the matter is that we have people in the church who are struggling with this, who are trying to be faithful Catholics, who are trying to live by God's word, but this issue comes up for them as a stumbling block, and many leave the church because of it. So I guess this kind of gets down to why this conversation, right? To me, as Catholics, we are called to be merciful. We are called to be charitable, but we are also called to be steadfast in our beliefs. This is one of the biggest conversations of our time right now. And in many respects, I feel the world is pushing against us, saying that we are bigots, that we only have ill fate for people who are dealing with transgenderism or the entire LGBTQ community, that we are not compassionate towards their plight. And I can say that with a lot of the rhetoric out there, that I can see how that can be perceived. But if we're going to really help our brothers and sisters in Christ to find salvation and to get to heaven together, we've got to be able to have these hard conversations. And that's why I think that this conversation is so important and why I want to have it here on my channel. You know that we push the issues here. We push what the world says against what God says here and try to figure out how we can live devoutly in our faith as Catholics, no matter what society says. So that is why I feel like I want to address this and why I know that I have this passion about this. So I want to go into the situation of Jazz itself. And Jazz Jennings to me is such a tragic example of what happens when you make someone who should not be the face of a global movement the face of it. And especially to put that on a child at a young age.
I just want to feel like myself. I am Jazz star Jazz Jennings regrets early gender transitioning. I don't know where people are coming up with this idea that I regret my early gender transitioning. I have no regrets whatsoever.
If you think life is complicated, try dealing with a transgender girl texting a boy she just met at school.
She's made a new friend, and it's a boy. So I tell her, if you're going to have friends that are boys, they need to know immediately. I wanted to tell you that I was transgender, which means that I was a boy, but I became a girl. So I have a girl brain, but a male body.
A few moments later, the boy responds, obviously confused.
He just sent me, but you have a girl body, right?
That's a very difficult question to ask. Why don't you tell him to watch the videos first?
Jazz texts him back to watch this online video of her, hoping it will help him to understand.
And I think like a girl, but I just have a boy body. Oh, that's a cute video. So what parts of a boy do you have?
What are you going to say?
The P word.
You are?
The P word.
Like a tattoo that won't rub off, the P word is likely to follow Jazz everywhere.
I don't care what he thinks about me. If it's bad, if it's good, then I love him, so I am.
What part of being transgender hurts you the most?
My genitalia. Because right now I feel like a girl, but when I look down there, it reminds me.
And that must feel very bad for you.
Yeah.
Has been,
I'm scared.
quote unquote, living as a girl now for years, but isn't happy. I think we have to clip that. Let's watch it.
So, are you feeling like you want to start talking about? Are you okay?
I'm okay. And I think I'm kind of breaking down a little bit and spiraling into negativity. I just want to feel like myself. Like, that's it. I don't care. All I want is to be happy and feel like me, and I don't feel like me ever.
We have watched Jazz from the age of about 4 years old come into this situation where they're being paraded around as the face of what perfect transition for children is. There's supposed to be a happy ending here, and we're not seeing that. What we're seeing is someone literally mentally breaking down, physically breaking down, and trying to act like they're okay.
Oh, wow. That's the most I've ever seen. That's really gotta go. Seeing myself weigh 234 pounds, it's devastating. Oh my God. It's pretty heartbreaking to realize, like, wow, like, I did this to myself. 234 pounds, that puts me in the morbidly obese range.
I'm really scared for her, not just because of the number on the scale, but because of the health concerns.
I'm just gonna put this on your index finger.
She has high cholesterol. She's now developed asthma. Her resting heart rate is higher than my heart rate when I'm working out, and I'm an old lady. She's too young to have all these health concerns, and as she gets heavier, she's just gonna get sicker. Her body is just screaming out for help.
And you can't even blame Jazz for this at the root of it all, because I feel like it really falls on Jazz's parents, particularly Jazz's mom, at the end of the day.
When Jazz was like 3-ish, 4, she would want to go to school dressed as a girl, and I would say, you know what, Jazz, people are going to make fun of you. We have to put you in your boy clothes. I'm really sorry, but it's important for you, not to be bullied. And she just fought. She would just lay in front of the door. I don't want to go to school in these clothes. Please, Mommy, don't make me wear these clothes to school. And it was heartbreaking. Jazz came up to me in the bathroom with the ponytail holders, and she wanted me to braid her to make the ponytail, so I made a part and I put the 2 ponytail holders in her hair. And I told her she looked like a beautiful little girl. She wanted to know, can girls play sports? And I said, girls can do anything they want to do. And she was so happy, and she was dancing around. It was like just such a great moment, and I just loved her, and I just wanted to see her happy, and it made her so happy. And she wasn't allowed to go to school like that. It was just awful, because this kid, it just made her day. She looked up at me with these eyes. And I knew that I was going to do whatever it took to make her happy. I didn't care what anybody thought. I just want her to be happy.
Jazz was named Jazz. Jazz was named Jaren. That was Jazz's birth name.
Yeah. My 4 men.
I just was in denial. I was probably like most people who would think, is that it was just a passing phase. I could distinctly remember being at the front door. Jazz was dressed in a dress, and I just wasn't leaving the house. And I just wasn't prepared to go out and let her go out into society dressed as a girl.
I'll never forget one day I was at the computer and Jazz came up to me and she said, "Mom, when is the good fairy going to come with her magic wand and change my penis into a vagina?" And I was really confused. I have this 2-year-old coming up to me and saying, I'm a girl. Like I had a pit inside of my stomach. I'm like, my kid is not normal. This is not normal.
They took me to the doctor when I was 3 years old, and she held up 2 dolls. One doll was a girl and had girl parts, and one doll was a boy and had boy parts.
When I ask children to draw a picture of themselves, draw a picture of what they like, and many, many trans children will draw mermaids. They have tails. They have no genitalia. They can be beautiful and pretty, and you can put sparkly things on them.
Dr. Marilyn Volker is a therapist who specialises in sex and gender issues.
What is gender identity disorder? How do you explain that?
It's literally where the biology between the legs does not match the gender identity between the ears.
When Dr. Volker first saw Jazz, she was just 3.
We use pictures and anatomical dolls. Jazz looked at the penis and scrotum, looked at the vagina, and said, "When I'm fifth, the good fairy is going to bring me a vagina." And I don't look at a child and say, "Oh, transgender." I ask them why they would want a vagina.
And what did Jazz say?
Because I'm a girl.
And when you start to blame the parents, it forces us to put up a mirror, to talk to society and ask the questions of what the role of parents who are dealing with this around the world, what should they be doing? We are told that if you don't affirm children in their gender, that they are going to hurt themselves, that they are going to go ahead and try to even end their lives, and all these really terrible things. But what we're also seeing is that even after you've done all this affirming, that they're still having mental issues and they're still harming themselves.
She said, "I don't want to talk about it because you guys are not going to be supportive." And I say, "Well, we don't know. If you tell us what's going on, I'll be more than happy to help you. I do anything to help you, Jaylee. But the only thing that I need and I want for you is to see the happy girl that I used to be before." She said, "I'm not a girl, I'm a boy." Was 13. She's starting to go into social media. I noticed that she was sort of depressed because she's starting to cutting herself, and I seek for help. She was going to therapy through the school and outside too, but it didn't help. The first year in high school, freshman year, she met this other girl who was going into all this situation like transgender. She was the one who was telling her that she was depressed because maybe she was not a girl. She was invited to go to an LGBTQ group at school. I didn't know about it. So I don't know if the schools, they supposed to let us know what's going on or not, but they never sent me any note telling me we need to talk about your daughter. She asked everybody in the family to call her Jay. So I did. Jay, okay, we called you Jay. If you're happy, we call her Jay. She was not happy. And then she came up with Andrew, and that's when DCFS was involved. Because I didn't support all the changes that she was telling everybody, that she was a transgender and she was in the process of it. And what they did is just to send it to the school psychologist to talk to her. So they talk, and then when DCFS was involved, the school psychology wrote a note saying that my daughter was better off out of my home because we were not supportive towards the change. She was 16 years old when she move out. I didn't have any support from school. I didn't have any support from anyone. I was the bad guy. And even though I talked to them about the depression, they didn't care about that. It didn't matter. At this point, the changes was more important because that was gonna make my daughter happy, and she will not harm herself. And that's why the school psychology decided to tell DCFS to remove my daughter from the house or do not send it back home. That, I was possible for her to come back home. It didn't matter. Like, if we keep her out of your home, she has more chance to survive, and she's not gonna try to commit suicide. They allow her to change her name from Jaylee to Andrew. She was taking the hormones. She was not happy. She changed her name, was not happy. She adopted a dog because that was gonna make her happy, and none of everything that they done didn't work. The next day in the morning, like 8:15, I received a phone call from the coroner's office. When they asked me, "Are you Jaylee Galdame's mom, aka Andrew?" And I say, "Yes." "Who's calling?" And she said, "Well, are you home?" "No, I just dropped off my son at school, so I need you to park the car." And then my heart went like crazy. I said, "No." I just got off the first exit. I parked my car. "Tell me, where's my daughter? I want to go see her." And she said, "I'm so sorry, but you're not going to be able to see your daughter." They said, "Why? What hospital is she in? I just want to see her." Man, last night, she took her life away, and I said, "No. Where? Tell me what happened." I got off the car. I was screaming like crazy. I was screaming. I said, "No, I want my daughter."
So what is the right thing to do? And as people who are living their faith in Catholicism and Christianity, what are you supposed to do? One of my biggest issues in all of this is the fact that we are allowing children to make medical decisions for themselves, that we are allowing children to decide that, yeah, I want to go ahead and take puberty blockers. I'll tell you, as a fitness professional, that's probably one of the most dangerous things that you can do. We are literally taking the human body, God's creation, and stopping a process of nature that is supposed to happen, that has happened since the time we have ever evolved on this earth as human beings. And we are stopping that in order to fulfill man's desires, in order to fulfill the desire of a child who doesn't even comprehend about who they are as an adult as yet. That is a dangerous thing. Giving them the options to have irreversible surgeries that'll leave them infertile in many cases. How can we even say that that is like sane or correct?
Jazz is 11, on the verge of puberty. For a boy who wants to be a girl, that must be a disaster. Change of voice, facial hair.
It can be a disaster. Any little girl does not want to develop a beard, low voice, and we have done something about that.
Jazz is on hormone blockers.
This is day one of me on the blockers.
First given as a shot,
Relax, relax, relax.
then as a pump inserted into her arm.
It didn't hurt as much as I thought it would.
The medication stops testosterone from entering her body, essentially pausing her natural male development.
She has no detectable testosterone in her system right now.
Zero? Wow. They block any facial hair I might get or armpit hair, maybe, like just so I don't look like a boy, or even getting a deep voice also.
Jazz is 100% girl. How's your sight? And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that they've done the right thing.
Dr. Will Charlton is Jazz's doctor. With her development on pause, the next big decision is if and when to give her estrogen, the female hormone that will allow Jazz to grow breasts, prevent facial hair, and redistribute her body fat, giving her a curved feminine shape. But the cross-hormone therapy is irreversible.
I wish I could take that right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I want to start looking like the other girls and getting some little buds.
Getting some breasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want boobs.
Once Jazz begins taking estrogen, she will be permanently infertile. At 11 years old, do you think at all about being sterile and not having your biological children?
You shouldn't have to. She wants to have a baby of her own.
But she can't.
She knows she can't. It's probably one of the things that upsets her the most.
There are so many stories of young trans men and women who are coming out and saying that they started this process at the age of 15, 16, or even younger, taking the puberty blockers, many of them having surgeries and then regretting it later on in life, looking to detrans and get back to who they are. They realize that this was not the solution. We are setting our kids up for just so much failure mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and more when we affirm things that should not be affirmed, at least not for children. And I really feel like with adults, it's a harder conversation because adults are going to do what they want to do. One of the biggest issues with Jazz and that situation was the fact that Jazz was trans at a young age. Jazz had trans surgery, bottom surgery, at the age of about 16 or 17. However, up to that point, Jazz has been on a host of puberty blockers. So when they actually went and did the surgeries, that there were so many complications that it wasn't just one surgery. Jazz had to have 3 or 4 surgeries in order to correct an issue that would have been avoided had they have let Jazz mature into the young man that he is naturally and decide what he wanted to do, whether his parents agreed with it or not. That's a completely separate issue and something we'll talk about a little bit later. I think that one of the things that we should talk about is whether or not, if you are a parent who has a child who comes to you and says that, hey, I feel like I was born in the wrong body. I feel like I am a boy, but I should be a girl, or I'm a girl and I should be a boy. What should your next step be? I don't think punishing the child or disowning the child is the right thing to do, but talking to them in a greater way for them to understand that they are fearfully and wonderfully made in the Lord, that we don't have to conform to the gender norms of the world, and allowing them to be who they are. Growing up, we all know about tomboys. There may have been little boys who are a little bit more flamboyant or quote unquote effeminate than other boys. What's wrong with letting someone just be who they are and not chastising that and then making them have this decision of being another gender just because they're different? I think that is the root of everything right there, or not even everything, just one of the root problems right there. It defines 2 genders, male and female. And even if you want to throw in the conversation about intersex, it's not the same issue as someone who is trans. One of the things that we recognize within our faith is that, yes, we have male and female, and each are intrinsically different, but they are all and both equal in the eyes of God. So when you question that, or when you try to say that there are these multi-genders and all this other stuff, you're going against exactly what it says in the Bible. It's going against what we know and believe is true science, even science in and of itself. And to rip the Band-Aid off even more, if you're saying that you know better than what God knows for you, you're actually committing the sin of vanity and pride. And that's a whole other layer that anyone who's dealing with this has to grapple with. There's just so much, which is why I feel that when we talk about these things as Catholics, that we have to have charity, that we have to have some sense of mercy and understanding that these people are really dealing with a lot of deep-seated issues in faith, in mental health, in emotional health, physical health, and more. The question comes up, should we be coddling this? Like, how do you go about supporting someone just as in their humanity and their dignity, right? But still stay steadfast to what you believe. And I think that's where we have to have these deep conversations with ourselves as Christians. I don't think we need to coddle. No, absolutely. But I also think that we need to stand firm in what we believe. And we need to be able to have an open dialogue that is caring, that is respectful, that allows folks that are dealing with the trans issue and this whole entire identity thing to find that identity in Christ and to lead them back to the kingdom so that way they can find their salvation in the Lord and that they can find their inner peace as well. It's one of those things that, we talk about bearing crosses, right? We all have our own crosses to bear. We have to die unto ourselves in order to be in the fullness of Christ, right? And this is a cross that they bear. We all have our own crosses in many ways. And it's an interesting way of looking at things, but it's like because of this cross that they bear, if you're someone who's dealing with this, how can this help you to bring a closeness and a closer relationship with God? And this is a conversation that I want to continue to have in the comments. And I have a question for you that I want you to go ahead and answer right now. How do we go about showing support of the dignity of the person? How do we go about respecting them without necessarily affirming this kind of social belief system? That's the biggest question that I think we face as Catholics that we have to be willing to talk about. So go down to the comments and post your thoughts below. I'd love to hear them. Now, if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and subscribe right now and hit your bell notifications. That way you do not miss any notification at all. Set it to all. And if what I'm speaking to you right now really just like fires you up and you want to go deeper in faith, come on by and join my email list. Go ahead and get yourself on that. I love to send out emails that are just uplifting, enlightening, that help you to just take these deeper thoughts and kind of put them in action. One of the things I'm really passionate about here is growing this ministry, growing what we're doing here on the channel. And the way that you can help with that is by joining as a member. You'll get access to exclusive videos, private content that I release for members only. And most importantly, it helps me to keep things running over here. This stuff costs money, honey, okay? And so you really help to grow this to a degree that's going to reach so many people, to change so many lives. My main purpose here is to help us to live authentically as Catholics. What does that mean? And to bring our faith into everyday life and let it permeate everything we do. So join as a member to support what we're doing over here. I would greatly appreciate it.